this Eversys Academy video, we're going to explore programming a single espresso, going through some of the product settings. So I'm on the Cameo right now, and I've already entered the main menu, and I'm going to go straight into products and keys. And this is going to show all of the drinks we can make and all of their different parameters. On the right-hand side, you can see a small version of the main screen, so you can see which drink we're making adjustments to. I'm going to push my single espresso button. And then on the left-hand side, we can see all the elements of the drink. At the top, we've got the product icon. This one's showing a single espresso. And if I want to adjust it, I can just click on that and make changes. You can also see that there's a small icon. This has a clock showing that we're using an ETC system on this. And the green left-hand hopper is highlighted. And that means that we're using that left-hand hopper. We can make adjustments here to the name. So on key name, if you click it, you can type in what you prefer that drink to be called. It might be different in your business. You could even name it with the blend. We can go on the bean hopper and we can change that from left to right, or even use a mix or the powder chute if you were using pre-ground coffee for maybe a decaf espresso. Water quantity and cake thickness are the key settings setting the recipe of your espresso. They're the same as if you were using a traditional machine and talking about the dose of dry coffee and the yield of wet espresso that you get from it. Now we're going to adjust the cake thickness first. So that's our dose parameter. And on cake thickness, you can see, like on many of these settings, an up arrow and a down arrow that lets us adjust how much coffee we're using. You can see a product test button, which will brew a single espresso following the recipe that's programmed. And you can see a powder test button. And that's how we check how much coffee is being used. So on this machine, to do that, we're going to lift the steam arm up. We're going to lift our drip tray up. And we're going to make sure we've got a set of scales ready. We pull out our grind straw, we drop it on the scales, and we tare them. And then using that powder test button, sliding the grind straw back in place, we push powder test and we'll hear the machine grind the normal dose of coffee. As soon as it finishes grinding, we can remove the grind straw, drop it on our scales, and check our dose. So here I have 9.7 grams. For this coffee, I was looking for 9 to 10 grams. So this is a good place. I'm not going to make any adjustment. But if I did want a little more coffee, I would just push up. And whilst mils don't relate directly to grams, up and down are very intuitive and easy to use. Small adjustments always work well. I'm going to drop my grind straw back in place. Pull down the drip tray, and then we're going to look at that setting above it, which is water quantity. And again, we have a number here that is useful, but is not the same as what we're looking for. We're looking for grams or mils of our final drink. We're looking at flow meter ticks. So that's how the machine measures how much liquid is moving through. If we want to adjust this or set this in line with our specific recipe, the easiest way is to put some scales in place, drop a cup, and then use the button that's in the same place as our powder test. Here it says learn quantity, and we can see this through lots of the different settings on the machine. By pushing learn quantity, the machine will go through a full cycle, but we can stop the water quantity when we believe it's going to give us the right result. So I'm going to tare my scales, I'm going to push learn quantity, and we're going to hear it go through all the normal stages. So we're grinding coffee. It's going to go into the brewing chamber. That's then going to move into place. And as the water begins dispensing and we start seeing espresso, we're going to watch the scales. I'm going to look for a final result of around 18 grams. So when I get to 15, I push stop. And then I get my final espresso recipe. I've got my dose controlled. I've got my yield controlled. So now my final settings are around controlling flavor, how we tamp, how we control that extraction, and how we control the brewing time. Now, as we look through the other settings, you will see that we have tamping, where we can adjust the pressure with which the piston pushes against the coffee. We've got this set at 20 kilos, and that's good for most of the espresso drinks. We've got pre-infusion, and we've got a relax time. And we normally use these two settings together, particularly on single espresso drinks. So here, I've got pre-infusion set at 0.8 seconds and a relax time of 2 seconds. That's going to introduce a little water into the coffee puck and give it time to expand. We also have a second tamping section. Now this can be a positive or a negative number. So for this single espresso, we're using 2 mils. For a double espresso, often we'll use -2 mils. That retracts the piston and allows a little more headspace for the coffee puck to expand. There are 2 more settings at the bottom of the menu. There's a bypass quantity, which you could use to send some water into the cup that doesn't move through the coffee puck. And we have a coffee cycle. So if you wanted to run lots of espresso for an event, there are ways of doing that. But for our core settings, everything is here within this recipe screen. The only thing we haven't really looked at is brewing time, and we'll do that using the ETC, and we'll create a separate video where we introduce that concept. Thank you.